What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we'll be talking about the Bitcoin price chart along with the altcoin market as we come off of a massive liquidation event that took place in the cryptocurrency market yesterday, where nearly $2 billion was liquidated from leveraged players, posting the biggest liquidation event we've seen in quite some time. And for comparison of size of how big that liquidation was, do you guys remember when the VIX event happened and stock market was selling off, crypto was selling off, and Bitcoin slams right there? Yeah, that was this right over here. So it's for comparison size to see how big that was. It was a monster. Now, hard to compare apples to apples when you look at it like that because the cryptocurrency market has practically doubled in size since that event. So for a liquidation to be about double in size, you could probably just go ahead and put it on par with what did happen on August 5th and say they're probably about equivalent just due to the increased size in the market. But of course, for the last couple of videos, we've been talking about a liquidation, and well, we sure got one. And funny enough, the thought was that we wouldn't actually see too much price action in Bitcoin in order to trigger that liquidation, that we'd really only come down here 1 or 2% more. We did end up going 3%, but still nothing big happening in here for Bitcoin, but just enough to go ahead and trigger the liquidations. For those who are new to the market or unfamiliar, what happens with liquidations, essentially people are borrowing money to be able to buy even bigger sized positions in the market. If the price goes too far the opposite direction, the exchange will call for the return of the money and the collateral that was used to make that big purchase, and you essentially see things go very, very quickly. These types of moves that happen in here are not due to panic selling in a matter of minutes. It's margin calls being triggered, like stop losses and computer algorithms automatically selling off, where even giants like Ethereum can fall that fast in a matter of just 5 minutes, or XRP falling over here nearly 14% in a matter of 5 minutes. This is not panic-driven selling. This is margin call, margin call, margin call that crashes the price and triggers more margin calls to happen automatically to where the exchanges are automatically selling off positions, to where all the people who had all the exact same idea that they were going to borrow money to long the market get called back. When you're looking for bottoms, these are definitely things that you want to see. Even our one that happened back there in August was the actual bottom. Now, when I started talking about this idea on Sunday that we'd see Bitcoin's price move down here and see a liquidation happen, that's really, in that idea, that's really the extent of it. We really got the exact things that I was looking for, and that I wouldn't anticipate much more to come from that. When I've seen these before, essentially what comes next is just a lot of that. Probably several days of having to digest what just happened as the market tries to refigure itself out. New participants in the market are probably panic selling, saying, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for up only. Then doubt starts to set in, new content starts to come out, but in the end, it's okay. So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see happening over here for Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the altcoin market. We absolutely will be talking about the XRP price chart, which also happened to whipsaw against its 2021 peak at $1.96. Of course, we'll look at that through the bigger perspective on things like XRP versus Bitcoin. We'll talk about the total market cap of crypto, which still sits well above the 2021 high. And well, we'll do a little bit of theorizing over here on Bitcoin, talking about where we're at, whether we're on distribution or on expansion. And I'll incorporate some things from back in 2017 of what we saw with the altcoin market with the period of where we're at right now. So first things first, we'll talk about Bitcoin in here. In the event that that was the bottom for Bitcoin, which the ideas that I presented would be that it would be something like that, and that would be essentially looking for the price to digest itself to then eventually continue the march up higher once again. Now, the big debate in here right now is whether or not this is actual expansion or if this is distribution. For those who have been here with the channel for the past year, we've spent a lot of time talking about looking at Bitcoin through the inverse perspective in here, where you're familiar with looking at it like this, but structurally, we were creating what would look something along these lines. I've gone through a video that I've published on November 30th of 2023, titled The Euphoria Moment When the Altcoin Market and Bitcoin Price Chart Retrace. We spent time there back in 2023 talking about this idea of Bitcoin falling, looking at it through this inverse perspective, and then 2024 just kind of being a sideways year. Now we have eventually broken which, looking again from that perspective that you're used to, it's broken. But in these, the measured move of this whole thing would take it to about 107,000. So we've gotten very close, right? We've gotten to 103. And that's where the debate of distribution comes into play. We've now done a measured move of Bitcoin, gotten really close. The true measurement's about 107, 108, 109. So it hasn't quite gotten there yet, but really close. So when doing these types of things, there's still going to be a lot of looking out in here to see, hey, you know, does it get there? Then does it pull back? And then does it go into a retrace like this? And then we see the altcoin market really firing off in a way into that moment, not really being impacted too much by this move, but instead the altcoin market looking more like this. That would be a telltale sign that this is distribution and that there's problems coming here for Bitcoin. But we're not there yet. So we're like not even to that point yet, right? And like an example of that is really just like what happened back in 2021, where you're working out distribution in here. Finally, there becomes the big lower low. It goes back into the retracement level in here. And the altcoin market is not impacted by that and still continues to march even higher. That's classic sign of distribution and cycle ending. This is 2021. That also happened back here in 2017 when the peak of Bitcoin came in. The big fall, it goes back to the retracements, and the altcoin market minimally impacted by the initial fall and still continues to rampage to the upside, even in that big fall right in there and into Bitcoin's retracement. And so we just don't have something like that yet over here for Bitcoin. Bitcoin continues marching up. Altcoin market continues marching up with it. Here's a liquidation happening from Bitcoin. Here's a liquidation happening over here in the altcoin market. We're just not doing really all the final steps of distribution of what we've seen before. But, you know, if we saw something like that happen in there, and then you did see the altcoin market going off into something like that, then we would be saying, hey, look, okay, this does look like this was distribution. The whole 106, 7, 8, $9,000 being the top looks pretty reasonable. Just the way the altcoin market is acting, it's acting like it's in distribution. Okay, but we're just not there. You know, the alternative, of course, is if it's an actual expansion happening in here for Bitcoin. Throughout 2014 through 2016, this is what the purple price action looked like. And throughout 2021 through 2023 and 24, there were a lot of things that were unbelievably similar about the price action that happened in here. There was a lot of confusion as to why there was a new high for Bitcoin back in November of 2021. However, 90% of the altcoin market had already gone into a bear market. So it was very perplexing at the time. But then we end up doing all the same structures and recoveries happening in here as if we were just mega deep into it. Then all these peaks come in like on the exact same time frames that we've had. The Wyckoff accumulation ranges break all at the same time. The next ranges break over here at the same time. That one I just showed from back there in October, we talked about that over here on X. CZ Binance even commented on that one, saying history rhymes. Where we were talking about the parallels between now and 2014 to 2016 have been amazing on the Bitcoin chart. Each major milestone for Bitcoin in 2021 through 2023 has had shockingly accurate timing with 2014 to 2016. Today marks one of those days of will it continue? In 2016, the range finally escaped right here, right? This is October of 2023. What happened October, November, December of 2023? It was epic, right? Everything shot to the upside. Bitcoin does escape from here at, $28,000 and runs to 48. But looking back to our current time, thing we obviously have here is there's quite a bit of a delay here at the end. But in the end, if this is actual expansion happening for Bitcoin, you can kind of see where we're at. There was some pausing that happened in here after a big break ended up happening. And well, regardless of which situation it is, whether it's an actual expansion happening or if it's just early stages of distribution that's going to last a couple of months, this historically is a very positive time for the altcoin market. Like I just showed you in distribution, typically it still continues to rage on, right? Into the retrace at least. In this phase back in here for Bitcoin, right, which is what this is of what we've got highlighted over here, you can just kind of see what the altcoin market did during that phase. And as it continued to march its way up, even beyond that period, that wasn't the top. There was some volatility happening in here for the altcoin market while Bitcoin was in there, but it was really kind of these next couple of legs that ended up really being the peaks happening over here for the altcoin market. So we're going to go back and revisit that here in just a minute, but I want to talk about the altcoin market in general and the broader market in general first before we go back to it. As we know, Total 3 got back to the all-time high. Like we've talked about, there can be a tremendous amount of volatility when you get back here. We've used examples from even from back in 2021 with how big that range was and how volatile it was in here. That's a 35% range of volatility happening in there. Right now, we're nowhere even close to that. That's 19%. Within the last week, I've shown examples of that, of how you can get back to that high, and then there can be volatility coming off of that before the next leg ends up setting itself in. We saw the revisit of preliminary support happening here back on that August liquidation. Visit of preliminary support to only shoot straight up to the high and then have volatility come off of the high. Then for the final leg of the market to eventually come through and for it to push its way through. That's still the way I'm viewing this market. The total market cap still sitting above the all-time high. One thing that is glaringly obvious there is just that the total market cap hasn't backtested the all-time high. I think that's still our big question looming out there on if it's going to have to. Over here on XRP, obviously the price whipsaws down through the massive liquidation and hits the 2021 all-time high. So this one has already backtested the 2021 all-time high. I've seen lots of posts out there on Twitter of people celebrating that, saying, hey, it's just like what happened back in 2016 and 17. We've already back tested the previous high. That was the retracement rally of the entire range. We've spent a lot of time talking about this, that while those conditions are very similar to each other, the one thing that is different, of course, is that this goes into the all-time high first and does it from the high. This does not. This does it from a retracement. So it's hard to give it a true apples to apples comparison. One could just argue, hey, that's just, an illiquid wick. The market is so illiquid at this time back in 2017. This doesn't even last for a day. It hits here, 24 hours later, we're already back in here. Fair, I can hear that argument. However, we've done a lot of discussion about it being the market cap that's kind of been the more similar analogy. And while $1.96 has been hit, which is the 2021 high for the price, the market cap has not. And an equivalent price on that is much closer to $1.50. In the event that the total market cap of crypto does have to backtest the all-time high from 2021, I would think XRP's market cap would be backtesting the high of the market cap from 2021, which is about $1.50. You definitely have a confluence of two things happening in here, of where you've hit the 2021 high of $1.96, which we'll get that just right, just as close as you could possibly get. And not only do you hit it, but you hit it with what? A massive liquidation, which we know massive liquidations can mark bottoms. And while I can hold on to some hope with that, still not going to lay my guard down that could still get revisited. But for me, it's very important to not miss the forest for the trees. It's very common for us to have volatility happening right in here before the next leg up, which I do believe will come for XRP. And the whole move that we've seen so far is essentially the first leg. And so we have confluence of looking for one more leg to come over here for XRP, be it a large wave. We have the confluence for another large wave to come for the altcoin market as well. And we're not showing signs of us already being at the final stages of distribution for Bitcoin, which if we were, would still be another big wave for the altcoin market like we just showed. Or even if we were in expansion, it would still show more waves to come for the altcoin market. The question that everybody has is, was that the bottom? You can make arguments that it is by saying that was a massive liquidation. We've seen massive liquidations mark bottoms before. You saw XRP nail precisely the 2021 high with that massive liquidation, just like how it came back and nailed that high in 2017 to turn up. But the alternative argument I would provide is that you could still see the total market cap have to backtest the previous all-time high, and that it may not be the price chart of XRP that matters as much as the market cap chart of XRP that matters. Either way, if you're looking at the trees and determining whether they're bullish or bearish in the short term, in the end, I think the perspective of the entire forest being bullish is the correct view to have. So I personally am not taking any actions in here, holding on, knowing there can be all this volatility happening right in here for the next leg to happen to the upside. But I could tell you when that next one comes, I won't be providing as much like hope and reassurance that things are going to be okay after the next one, right? That's more of like the exit wave. But I have no problem with where we're at right now and what the price action is doing right here. I could see the argument from the perspective of it being a massive liquidation with a precise nail happening there for XRP right on that thing. But like we mentioned in past videos, with waves of equal length, that for that one, it still comes from really right back there on top of that 2021 peak right over here. That actually does get you that 4.236 extension. So, I could show you why it's kind of like, I'd love to say, yeah, for sure, that's the bottom, because we had a massive liquidation happen in there, like massive, that tends to mark bottoms. The price chart back tested the 2021 high, just like in 2017. But, this still sits there, and the looming question of the total market cap having to touch the all-time high. But it's important to just kind of remember where we are. We're sitting here talking about back testing the all-time high of 2021. We're in a pretty good position here. We're just going through some of those growing pains of having the altcoin market try to get into the all-time high, which, as we've talked about for the last week and shown examples of it, there can be a bumpy road to try to get out. But, one thing I do want to talk about really briefly as well is like those differences between what if Bitcoin is in distribution versus what it is in expansion. I just showed it to you for distribution, and it's actually been quite similar each time, right? There becomes a big fall that happens in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin goes back into a retracement. The crowd goes euphoric and wild, and the altcoin market rallies into that retracement, and boom, that's it, lights out. It's kind of like clear cut, 702 retracement, just cut everything. But in this type of event, things actually act a little different. And it's actually far more difficult because I've studied this dynamic a lot, and that it wasn't really like everything happens all at once into some type of 702 retracement. It all happens really, really differently. And that's what we kind of talked about earlier in the video, and thing I said I would revisit again. And that I'll take most of these off of the screen. And I'll shift over here to TradingView just for this one really quick. But you could see, like, we're talking about that moment right there for Bitcoin, that you could see XRP really kind of shoots off into this. And it's once this range is really starting to get left in here for Bitcoin, the top of XRP already comes in. So we go from this to this, right on this break happening in here. That's where the conclusion ends up happening for XRP, and that full move is done. And then you can see when we start adding on other ones that the timings of these peaks and these takeoffs all happen really at different times. Like you could see over here for Ethereum, this takeoff happens in here, and then the peak comes in much later. Litecoin, new economy movement at the time, lots of volatility in here, but the peak comes in over here. Monero, the peak comes in really over here. Augur, the peak comes in over here. Stellar, of course, much more closely with XRP, but you could see it comes in right in here, and Golem comes in over here. There was not like a consistent like 702 retracement that ends up marking the tops. They all just kind of have these individual tops that all kind of end up happening over a period of 30, 40 days. It was nothing consistent between the altcoins topping and when they did. And the reality was that big wave for XRP comes first, and it tops first out of all of them. And then what ends up happening from this moment forward? Put a line here. And you'll see that really the show becomes all about Bitcoin from then on out until the market kind of comes to a conclusion over here. The altcoins were not the show-stopping event. It was all Bitcoin and Bitcoin only from then on out. So, things we're going to be paying attention to, of course, is like, regardless of what it is, right? Like regardless of if it's an expansion happening, here's your example of expansion, or if we're in distribution and then like a 702 retrace comes and the altcoin market rallies up. Like I just wanted to kind of show you in both examples, like, right, this is the exciting time of the altcoin market, but it also comes to an end pretty quick, right? I think that's the point I'm trying to show here. If it's just standard distribution, it becomes pretty easy where it's like, you get to a 702 retracement, boom, that's it, right? Just cut everything and run for the hills. But if we have something like this, you will see that everything kind of tops at different times, and it becomes kind of a whack-a-mole of chase one thing, then chase the next thing, then chase the next thing. And it's just kind of pure chaos. And there isn't one like particular moment in time of being like, hey, it's time to sell all assets at the exact same time, because you can clearly see it in here. They all top at different times over different phases of Bitcoin's distribution that's happening right in here. So, it goes into expansion, the altcoins expand with it, and they all kind of top at different times. And so if we're showing exhibits, or if we're exhibiting behaviors that look like that, we'll address it, of course, at that time. But I wanted to kind of lay the foundation on there of being like, if we get this one, it will be extremely hard for each individual altcoin picking when they're going to end up topping, rather than being like, the ending where it's either at the peak of the market or it's right here into the retracement, or like 2017, the peak of the market and into the retracement, right? You can see the retracement is where it just all falls off of a cliff. Those are your simple examples. So if we do exhibit like the expansion for Bitcoin, where it is, more along the lines of that, just kind of having the idea is that, hey, things will kind of top individually rather than as a group. So either way, it's an incredibly exciting time in the market. We've got the total market cap in the all-time high. You got the altcoin market bucking up against that all-time high, having the growing pains of what it takes to get into the expansion. Still awaiting that next wave to happen once this thing can settle down. But we spend years in this market waiting for this moment, and it's exciting to actually be in it. What we're seeing shouldn't be too surprising to anybody if they've been watching the videos and showing the things that I've shown of what can happen at all-time highs and with liquidations. The thing I just do know is that a lot of new people come into this market and they kind of ignore that. And these volatility swings are not for the new people. They typically come from markets where 1 to 2% in a day is a very big move. We definitely see 20% swings in a day all the time here in crypto, whether up or down. But overall direction of what we're doing, these are the types of things that you do before you go into expansion. So certainly exciting. Now just waiting for it to settle. But all right, that's going to be it for this one, you guys. I hope you're having a good day. If you're looking for something to do, of course, you could check out the newsletter over here. It's all green. November's Crypto Renaissance. The crowd is returning. I go through a lot of my YouTube statistics to show what that looks like. Talk about the 20 coin portfolio that I bought back in September and how that thing's doing. Talk about meme coin trenches like First Ledger and Pump Fund, comparing that to the difference between meme coin mania and how that can tend to mark the tops, and then what historically happens next in the market after we get to these all-time highs. I do voice over all of these newsletters that I write, so you can listen to them if you would like. You also get access to all the past ones as well if you sign up for the newsletter at blockchainbacker.substack.com. Of course, you could check out my website, bcbacker.com, with over 40 videos and 11 hours of content teaching you how to set up your own charts and your own indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. Also talk about different patterns and ranges, the Wyckoff accumulation method with distribution and accumulation, Elliott wave theory, historical behavior of the cryptocurrency market, and a lot of things that I've just learned from market experience. There's also a downloadable PDF in here with supplemental information for a lot of these sections right over here at bcbacker.com. There are links in the descriptions of each of my videos to bcbacker.com and to the newsletter at blockchainbacker.substack.com. Otherwise, that's it for this one, and thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.